The mind is a strange place. It holds memories, fears, hopes, and versions of ourselves we've never met. For years, mine felt like a battlefield, broken, loud, and constantly shifting between chaos and exhaustion. If anyone had looked at me from the outside, they would have seen someone living a normal life. But inside, I was fighting a war no one else could see. My mornings often began long before the sun rose, not because I wanted to, but because anxiety refused to let me sleep. The moment my eyes opened, the battlefield reappeared. Negative thoughts marched in like soldiers advancing through the fog. They attacked quickly, hitting me with fears about the day ahead, reminding me of past failures, whispering that I wasn't enough. My mind became the ground where they built their camp, uninvited, yet impossibly strong. As I moved through the day, these thoughts tightened their grip. Every small problem became a crisis. Every challenge became proof that I wasn't capable. Each silence, no matter how ordinary, felt like an accusation. I walked through life as if crossing a field littered with landmines, never sure what would explode next. The worst part was not the fear itself, but the belief that I couldn't do anything about it. I treated every negative thought as a command, every anxious whisper as truth. I allowed them to decide how I felt, how I behaved, even how I viewed myself. Without realizing it, I had surrendered the battlefield to an enemy that lived inside me. Depression arrived quietly, like a thick fog settling after a storm. It didn't shout, or attack, or force itself in. It simply covered everything in gray. It made the world feel dim and distant. It made the smallest tasks feel heavy. It made hope feel unfamiliar. And it made me believe that peace was something meant for other people, not for someone like me, but something inside me refused to disappear completely. A faint spark, too small to notice most days, too brief to cling to, still flickered. It wasn't strong. It wasn't loud. But it was there for a long time. I thought survival meant running from the negative thoughts that chased me. I tried ignoring them, burying them, distracting myself, pretending I was fine. But each time I ran, they followed. Each time I buried them, they grew roots. Each time I pretended, the war only intensified. One evening, after a day that felt heavier than usual, I found myself reflecting on this endless battle. Something unexpected dawned on me. I wasn't losing because my thoughts were stronger than I was losing because I was playing by their rules. Rules I never created. Rules that kept me stuck. Rules that allowed fear to command and doubt to dictate. If my mind was a battlefield, then it meant something important. I was part of the fight. And if I was part of it, then I had a say in how it was fought. That realization didn't bring instant peace. It didn't silence the noise. But it brought clarity. And clarity is often the first step toward change. I began paying attention, not to what my negative thoughts said, but to how they operated. I noticed patterns. I noticed triggers. I noticed how they grew stronger when I was tired, overwhelmed, stressed, or lonely. I realized they weren't truth tellers, they were survival mechanisms, outdated alarms reacting to old wounds and forgotten memories. They weren't the enemy, they were signals, and slowly, I began changing the rules. The first rule I changed was simple: not every thought is true. For years, I believed every anxious whisper. But once I started questioning them, their power weakened. When a negative thought appeared, I didn't run. I observed. I examined. I asked myself if it was fact or fear. Most of the time, it was fear wearing the mask of truth. The second rule was this: feelings are messengers, not dictators. I allowed myself to feel sadness without letting it define me. I let anxiety surface without letting it control me. I gave myself permission to cry, rest, pause, breathe. I stopped treating emotions as failures and started seeing them as part of my humanity. The third rule changed everything. If my mind can create chaos, it can also create peace. This rule became the foundation of everything that followed. I began building routines that strengthened the quiet parts of me, the parts that had gone unheard. I practiced gratitude, even when it felt small. I created moments of stillness, even when the world inside me was loud. I repeated affirmations that felt unnatural at first, but slowly began rooting themselves in my mindset. When the negative soldiers appeared, I stopped surrendering. Instead, I faced them with new armor: awareness, compassion, patience, self-love. I didn't try to win the war in a single day. I simply refused to lose myself in it. Over time, something remarkable happened. The battlefield inside my mind began to change. The fog of depression slowly lifted in places, allowing patches of light to break through. The anxious army lost its dominance, appearing less frequently, attacking less aggressively. The positive thoughts, the ones I had barely noticed before, grew stronger. They formed their own army, not loud or forceful, but steady and resilient. The war didn't disappear. It never does. Life will always bring challenges, uncertainty, and emotional storms. But the rules were different now. I no longer fought myself. I no longer ran. I no longer believed every thought that tried to tear me down. Instead, I became the commander of my own mind. Some days were still difficult. Some felt like setbacks. Some reminded me of old wounds. But each time I returned to the battlefield, I did so with renewed strength. I stopped focusing on defeating the darkness and started focusing on nurturing the light, and that's when the greatest shift occurred. The war zone became a training ground, the fear became a teacher, the doubt became a signpost, the pain became part of my evolution. I realized that the mind doesn't need to be a place of conflict. It can be a place of growth, clarity, and transformation if we choose to reclaim it. The world inside me is still complex. Thoughts still clash, emotions still rise, and fears still try to speak. But now, I decide which ones stay. I decide which ones guide me. I decide how the battle is fought. My mind was once a war zone. Now, it is a landscape of resilience, not because the war ended, but because I changed.